I'm Dan Schaefer. Our team of reporters has been at the courthouse all day awaiting this verdict. We begin with WAAY 31's Nicole Zedek. She was inside the courtroom as that verdict came down. Nicole.
Dan, you could feel the tension inside of the room as many of Blakely's friends and family members had been waiting all day to see if the longtime sheriff would walk out guilty or innocent. And I heard audible gasps as the judge read out guilty on count 2 for theft of property. The judge finished reading through all of the counts and read guilty for the final count 13 as well, for using his position for personal gain with the inmate fund. Now, Blakely was then escorted out of the courthouse, followed by a sea of people with shock on their faces. I heard one woman hysterically crying on the phone, and many others gathered around consoling each other. Reporting live in Athens, Nicole Zedek, WAAY 31 News.
Nicole, you mentioned the fact that you heard audible gasps in the courtroom. What was the look on Sheriff Blakely's face? Could you see that?
I did see his face, Dan, and surprisingly, he did not reveal much emotion. No crying, no tears, and even as he was escorted out, although he was not put in handcuffs, he remained pretty calm as he was exiting the courthouse.
All right, Nicole Zedek reporting live for us in Athens. Blakely's defense team is already talking about appealing his 2 convictions for theft and using his office for personal gain. WAAY 31's Brecken Terry is live outside the courthouse now after speaking with his defense team. Brecken?
Yeah, Dan, Blakely's defense team told me they plan on filing a motion for a new trial, and then they're going to be going over the transcripts from this trial with a fine-toothed comb. Now, they even alluded to trying to find some statute that would allow Blakely to remain sheriff despite these felony convictions, but the Alabama law is pretty cut and dry on that matter, and he will not be allowed to be sheriff any longer. His attorney, Mark McDaniel, told me the fight is not over.
We will appeal this decision today, and look forward to having another day in court on this matter.
Now, a sentencing date for Blakely has not been set at this time. Live in Athens, Brecken Terry, WAAY 31 News.
All right, thanks, Brecken. We know the sheriff was immediately taken into custody after that guilty verdict. He was not handcuffed, but he is now removed from the office of sheriff. The Limestone County coroner, Mike West, will now take over those duties. West will serve in the position until Governor Ivey appoints a new sheriff for the county. Governor's office said that there is no timeline on that yet, but her office will start accepting resumes and begin the interview process in the coming weeks. Our verdict coverage continues now in our studios. WAAY 31, we're joined by attorney Michael Timberlake. Thanks for being with us, Michael.
Thanks for having me.
First of all, how significant is this, the conviction of the longest serving sheriff in the state of Alabama?
Oh, it's absolutely huge news in the North Alabama area, because everybody that's been around in Limestone County, Madison County, Morgan County, very familiar with Sheriff Blakely and his past and his history of being a sheriff and a renowned public figure in Limestone County. So this is big news.
Yeah, Sheriff Blakely, a huge, popular figure in the county, and a lot of supporters in the courtroom. So speaking as an attorney, how does that play into the jury? Did that work in the defense's hand, or did it make it tougher for the prosecution?
I think it did a little bit of both. I mean, I was incredibly surprised that they tried the case in Limestone County, where he is such a popular figure and where he has lived and worked for such a long time. Not sure that the prosecution would do that again if they had to do it over again. But when you look at the way the jury came down and the way that they did decide that he was guilty of 2 counts out of 10, it's clear that they gave him the benefit of the doubt on some of the crimes that were, or the alleged crimes that may have not been proven to the extent of the other ones. But they were not going to give him a complete pass for things that they thought that the prosecution had proved, regardless of what his stature in the community and how well liked he was. So they really did. I think they listened to the evidence and they followed the law.
So walk us through those charges on which the jury found him guilty.
Yeah, there was one count of theft of property, which is interesting because this is the account that deals with Red Brick Strategies consulting firm getting campaign money or money from a campaign for services, and then writing Sheriff Blakely a check for $4,000, and him not being able to really justify what that money was for. Now, this was interesting because Trent Willis, who was one of the witnesses that key witnesses that allowed for this count to go forward, was under investigation from the AG's office, and there was some question about whether that had been adequately disclosed to the defense as required prior to the trial, and that's certainly going to be a grounds for appeal. So I think that's something that Mike Blakely's legal team is going to look at in terms of trying to appeal that conviction.
Yeah, certainly not over yet. So
Yeah,
he is
no.
facing serious time in prison, though. He mentioned at the top of the newscast he could be 20 years in prison for some of these charges. So in your opinion, though, how likely is it that Sheriff Blakely will spend any time behind bars?
Well, you've got one the conviction that they may look at in terms of appeal, and then the other one was misuse of inmate funds, which is he was taking loans and getting interest-free loans from the inmate funds. The judge is going to look at the situation. A Class B felony, both of them were Class B felonies, and they can be from 2 years up to 20 years in prison. Now, the judge could have the sentences served consecutively or at the same time, so that he wouldn't, if he gets the minimum on both, it would be 2 years in prison. More than likely, that would be split in some ways, so that he would have some probation and some jail time. The judge is also going to look at whether he is going to be in a position to repeat, to do these things again. And since he's no longer sheriff, I think the judge may take that into consideration when determining the sentencing. So it'll be really interesting to see what the arguments are for sentencing and what the prosecution requests in terms of sentencing from the judge.
Really appreciate your insight. Michael Timberlake, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Our coverage of this verdict is far from over. Tonight on Way 31 News at 10, we'll hear community reaction. And until then, you can find our complete coverage of Sheriff Blakely's trial and the verdict on our website, waytv.com.